Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dog Co Secrets podcast. My name is Michelle Kline. I am your host, and I am also the founder of Dog Co Launch, where pet care companies come to grow and scale. In today's episode, today's short, kind of top of mind episode, I wanted to talk about 5 things that I wish I knew when I first started entrepreneurship that I now know. So let's get into it. The first is going to sound a little sad, and I don't mean it that way, but I do think it's true. And that is that it is loneliest at the top. This is actually advice that someone in my personal network gave me right when I was getting started. And I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but I remember he said, if you don't understand what I mean now, you will someday. And it's very true. It is something I've acclimated to, but there is a certain weight that I think you carry when, you are at the head of the business where no one really understands on your team. And that's not their fault. That's not anybody's fault. It just like the weight does ride with you differently. Like the weight of making payroll, the weight ultimately of firing and deciding who gets to be there, the weight of making the decisions for the business that impact so many other people. I know as I'm talking, if you own a business, you're probably feeling, you can almost feel it on your shoulders. It's like a very heavy thing. And I think over time, you get used to carrying that in many ways and like even learn to enjoy it, like learn to find the honor in it. Like it is an honoring thing to carry so much weight, that affects other people, but it can be lonely. And I remember when I first, I would say, really stepped into my business, I was a couple years into having my pet care business. I'd kind of made the transition of, oh, I see this as like a hobby or a side project to this is my full-time income. I'm treating this like a real job, a real business. I am a real business owner. And I remember very quickly realizing, oh, okay, I get it. It is lonely. It's funny. The title of this episode was Things I Wish I Had Known. I don't know actually that I wish I had known that because I think that, I would have like psyched myself out about it or really built it up to be, a very difficult thing. And it's not that it wasn't, but it just is what it is. Like it is different when you are the boss, and it is lonely in some ways. If you're ready to take your pet care business to the next level, then I want you in the room at the Dog Co Business Summit, October 2nd through the 4th in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have brought together the very best speakers we could possibly find, and we are getting the best companies in the room to help give you the path to grow and scale your pet care business. Go to dogcosummit.com to learn more. The second one, I do wish I had known ahead of time because I would have saved myself so much pain. The second thing I wish I had known before I became an entrepreneur is that hard decisions only get more difficult the longer you sit on them. There were a couple decisions when I first started my business, like people that I needed to let go of, people that clearly were not the right fit, especially around like who was on the team, but other things as well, where I just didn't want to deal with the situation in front of me. And so I avoided it. And those problems became so much bigger the longer I let them stew. They never get smaller. They only become more prevalent, more pervasive, and more difficult to untangle in your business. Now, not that I am perfect at this by any means, but if I see something where it's like that needs to be dealt with, I try and do it as quickly as possible. And it's not actually out of a discipline. It's more so out of self-preservation because I've seen how much worse it can get when you are unwilling to take decisive action. So now I really try and look through the lens of how can I protect future me? How can I make her life easier? And oftentimes that is dealing with hard things right in the moment when I need to, rather than sitting on decisions that are difficult because they only get more difficult with time. It's not only people issues in the business, but that is where I tend to see it the most. And where I have felt the effects the most personally is when I have let people issues pervade in a way that they shouldn't. Third thing that I wish I had known, I do wish I had known this one from the get go as well. Third thing I wish I had known, people will take me as seriously as I take me. And I think I spent the first several years as a business owner, and I still struggle with this to a good degree, waiting for someone to like validate my skill set, waiting for someone to validate I deserve to be in the room, just looking for all of these external things to validate, like to set the tone for how seriously I would then take myself. And I realized and have realized that that is backwards. I need to set the bar for how seriously I take myself and my work and then let other people follow. And that doesn't mean that everyone will respect the work that you do. I do think more people will if you take it seriously yourself. But I think it becomes very clear who you should have in your circle and who you shouldn't, based off of how people treat the seriousness that you treat yourself. And I wish I had known that. I think I spent a lot of time looking for validation and permission as a business owner rather than just claiming space and showing up and saying, I take this really seriously. This is who I am and what I do. Fourth thing that I wish I had known when I became an entrepreneur is that there are a lot of skills you are going to need inside of your business to make it successful. I think it's Hormozy who talks about, he says something to the effect of the question is not what can I do? It's what does the business need? It's something along those lines. Like your business is going to need you to develop skills for it to succeed. It just needs what it needs to survive in the marketplace. I've always been pretty bought in on that. Like if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to have to learn. But I have realized now that I'm on my third business that there is kind of like a through point on all skills. And that is clarity on numbers, clarity on your data. And that supersedes every other skill that you could possibly create in your business, but it also covers everything. So if you can get really, really good at understanding the data and the numbers inside of your business, that is going to give grace for areas that you might be underskilled because you have better visibility and better data. And so I think I would have spent more time as a younger entrepreneur really learning that skill set. It's one that I still want to develop very deeply because I genuinely believe that that actually prepares the business for success more so than some of the other skills that you can craft and put in place, but that will never be as effective as if you really understood the data and the numbers inside of what you're looking at. Like that's the superpower of the decision making, not the skill set itself. And then finally, last thing that I wish I had known when I became an entrepreneur is that the work will always be there. So I go through life with an extreme degree of urgency. I have always been like that. I like to do a lot of things. I like to take a lot on. And I like this about myself. Like, I think at this point I've just accepted this is who I am. But I have gotten better at sometimes you need to set the work aside. And it feels uncomfortable, especially when you're like really in it. You're in a season where you are just grinding and you are just going really, really hard. And sometimes the work needs you to set it aside for you to be able to show up as your best self. And sometimes you just should set the work aside because you want to, and you have other things in your life that you want to prioritize. And I have tried to get better at remembering and believing the work will always be there. Like I can always come back to it. We obviously want to do that in ways that are not harmful, like that don't break commitments to other people. But this internal drive, this internal, like I always have to be rushing, I always have to do more, more, and more. That work will be there if I take the night, the weekend, the week off, and I can come back to it. And so I've tried to get better at practicing that the longer I've been in entrepreneurship. So I hope this was helpful. Tag me in social media on the understanding that you wish you had had when you first started or beliefs that you've shaped and formed along the way. Have a good one, everybody.